This is Pauline, and this is Pauline, all grown up, and this is not Donkey Kong. It's allegedly Cranky Kong, who is old when Pauline is a child. Uh-oh. So with Pauline's presence in Donkey Kong Bananza, it looks like things aren't really making a whole lot of sense in the sense department. But what if I told you that there is a clear answer as to what is going on here, and it lies right before our very eyes? Donkey Kong, the game that started it all. A few simple levels revolving around a legally distinct homage to King Kong. 3 characters star in Donkey Kong: the Big Ape himself, Jumpman, and Lady, who would later be known as Mario and Pauline. Of these 3, Mario and Donkey Kong would soon go off on their own adventures, and would interact with each other quite rarely. Pauline quickly faded into obscurity, as she was replaced by Princess Peach as the resident damsel in distress. The Donkey Kong, who is the main character of the Donkey Kong series that we are most familiar with, is apparently not the Donkey Kong from Donkey Kong. That honor goes to Cranky Kong, DK's ornery grandfather, old dude he hangs out with. So it is commonly accepted that Cranky is Arcade DK, but really, what evidence do we actually have of this? Sure, the opening of Donkey Kong Country shows us Cranky Kong on top of a girder playing the original arcade theme, before the current Donkey Kong shows up to transition us into the new jungle setting, but that's vague and implied. However, there is one bigger piece of evidence to Cranky's identity as the arcade DK. In the Donkey Kong Country 2 GBA remake, there is this added cutscene before the game begins that starts with Donkey Kong lounging on the beach before being scolded by Cranky Kong for being lazy. Cranky remarks that he used to whisk off maidens and throw barrels 7 days a week when I was your age. But hold on, this doesn't mean Pauline. He doesn't say Pauline. He doesn't say that he was involved in this particular incident. He just says that he whisked off maidens and threw barrels. Also, he said 7 days a week, which means he did a Donkey Kong many times with many different maidens. Sure, perhaps one of these maidens was Pauline, or perhaps none of them were, because Pauline wouldn't have been born yet at the time Cranky was doing any whisking or barrel throwing. Like, Cranky Kong is elderly. At the time of Donkey Kong Country, it had only been about 13 years since the original Donkey Kong. Let's say Cranky is 60 years old, minimum. That would have made him 47 back then. Hardly a good age to be scaling buildings. And don't give me the whole apes have shorter lifespan, so actually Cranky's like 35 and he looks like this. We have seen that Donkey Kong and Mario are around the same age since they are both babies at the same time in Yoshi's Island DS. Cranky also shows elements of human aging with the gray hairs and wrinkles and walking with a cane, things that apes certainly do not do. Obviously, the Kongs follow the cartoon logic of more humanized animal characters simply following normal human lifespans, which I prefer, by the way. Like, I don't know, the idea that they have normal ape shorter lifespans is kind of sad. Imagine that guy you're always going go-karting with and playing golf with is just gonna die at 35 years old because he's an ape. Like, I don't want to think about that. Are you gonna make me think about that? Now, story-wise, the implication that Cranky is the original Donkey Kong is just a funny jab at the outdatedness of arcade machines. Even in 1994, they were seen as antiquated, so by having Cranky Kong be comically old, it further punctuates how old Donkey Kong Arcade is. This joke is not lost on me, but I still don't buy that Cranky is actually the guy. At least not in the way that we think he is. Anyway, onto Pauline's first appearance after the arcade era. Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2 and So this is a pretty big contradiction to the more platonic little buddy relationship that Bananza is going for. Or does it? See, this isn't the whole story. First off, Donkey Kong's motivation isn't about infatuation, it's about insecurity. Pauline chose a mini Mario toy over a mini Donkey Kong toy, which actually is an accident because she wasn't looking at the DK toy at the time he presented it to her. In response to this, DK kidnaps her. A bit of an overreaction, sure, but Po Buddy's nerfic. During the ending cutscene, Pauline even forgives Donkey Kong, who gave her a bunch of presents, by the way. And if we look at Donkey Kong Bananza, Pauline gets carried around by DK for most of the game. So him carrying her around isn't so bad, knowing that in their past, he always carried her around. At worst, this is just DK getting a little carried away, which is pretty consistent with his character. Donkey Kong isn't even pulling on her that hard, and she's not even really resisting. She seems more like, huh? Where you taking me, buddy? Rather than, help me! Trust me, if an ape pulled on your arm at full strength, it would not be pretty. Then in Mario vs. Donkey Kong, Minis March Again, DK kidnaps Pauline again, but this time Pauline is actually in on it, as she only pretended to be kidnapped so that Mario could test out the Mini Mario toys to save her. Strange business practice, but still consistent with DK and Pauline's status as best friends. So with all this in mind, how do we get the Donkey Kong arcade games? Why would Donkey Kong, who seems to have previously known Pauline, kidnap her and get beaten up by Mario on that fateful day at the construction site? In order to figure that out, we're going to need to take a trip to New Donk City. So while Pauline had these little roles in those Mario vs. Donkey Kong games, her real reintroduction to gaming was none other than NES Pinball, where you save her from the box. No, seriously, it's Mario Odyssey. That was the moment where Nintendo decided that Pauline was going to be a real character in the Mario series. And looking at Pauline's presence in Odyssey, you can really see a lot of the seeds being planted that are now coming to fruition in Bananza. The fact that it's even named New Donk City was kind of strange at first. Like, that's weird. You're mayor of a city that's named after an ape who kidnapped you, and all the streets are named after his family members and pets? Now, with Bananza, this makes sense. She named the city after the ape who saved the world with her, but that still doesn't square the circle of the whole he kidnapped her thing. So Pauline's role in Mario Odyssey revolves around her titular song, Jump Up Superstar. The story goes that Pauline needs you to gather band members in order for her and Mario to perform the big festival. And what is this big festival? It's a side-scrolling platforming segment which ends with Mario defeating Donkey Kong. So I ask, what is this? Gameplay-wise, this is a way of putting actual platforming in the festival and weaving the Jump Up Superstar song into the game itself. But in universe, what is going on? Why put Mario in danger just for the sake of a festival? Well, perhaps this kind of side-scrolling running and jumping is a form of performance art in this universe, and the festival is a celebration of this art form. Perhaps this is this universe's version of WWE Pro Wrestling. Sure, it's all scripted, the conflict isn't real, but the actual feats of strength are. I think that Donkey Kong, the arcade game, is a more lower budget version of this festival, with Mario, Donkey Kong, and of course Pauline playing the roles of the hero, villain, and damsel in distress. This is consistent with Pauline's whole singer thing. She's a natural performer. This could also explain why Cranky refers to himself as whisking off maidens 7 days a week. He did the same sort of performance art before Donkey Kong did. But who's Donkey Kong Jr.? Well, maybe it's a younger Chunky Kong or Kiddy Kong. Maybe it's just a child actor they found who would rather be left out of the spotlight and live his life as a professor of bananaology. Okay, everyone, please respect DK Jr.'s right to privacy. So this whole confusing timeline all comes together. Events like Donkey Kong Bananza and Donkey Kong Country are real. Events like Donkey Kong Arcade are performance art. With all this in mind, the entire timeline and character relationships all make sense. But at what cost? So I've been talking a lot about what possible in-universe explanations there are for these inconsistencies. But I want to shift gears for a bit and talk about out-of-universe explanations. Donkey Kong Arcade and Donkey Kong Bananza have a 44-year gap between them. Literally half a lifetime. And during that time frame, the Donkey Kong and Mario series have had many different development studios and thousands of creative minds working with the characters. With this all in mind, something is gonna get jumbled. While it might be fun to theorize about how this all might fit together, the real and less fun answer is that it's just impossible to keep things consistent in the oldest and largest video game universe ever created. However, with that being said, I think you should take in my theory and enjoy it. Perhaps the timeline as I have presented it will give an added meaning when you play Donkey Kong Bananza, since you now feel like you're engaging with a story that is connected to the other ones you know and love, or maybe you're the type of person where it doesn't doesn't matter much at all. In which case, good on you for watching this far into the video, I guess. The real reason that Pauline is in Donkey Kong Bananza is because it was a strong creative choice that used a recognizable character. When they made the decision to include Pauline, they knew it would wreck the timeline. They knew it would be confusing, but they did it anyway. And you know what? I respect the decision, because the Pauline inclusion is a key element of Donkey Kong Bananza's identity, and a really interesting full circle conclusion of these decades-old characters. What I find interesting about all this is that the reason that people are drawn to the idea of Pauline being in Donkey Kong Bananza is because of her relationship to Donkey Kong back in the arcade days. But in having her be present in Donkey Kong Bananza, they kind of screw up that original lore that made you want to see her in Bananza in the first place. Kind of a strange contradiction if you think about it. I hope that today, with all of my crazy theorizing, I at least made it feel like it makes a little more sense. But what do you think? Is there any lore and little bits I missed when coming up with my own timeline? I'm sure there is, so please school me in the comments below with your better Donkey Kong knowledge. And if you want to support the channel, please leave a like and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And if you want to check out some more of my content, you can click on any one of these videos right here. They're really a lot of fun. Well, that's all for me. See you next time.